Breaking news, folks. WWE have just announced that there will be a women's match at tomorrow's Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. Just a day after I've structured my entire Raw review around making jokes that women can't go there. Hello and welcome to this special breaking news edition of WrestleTalk. I'm Ollie Davis. Please press the thumbs up button, give us a subscribe, share this video around and everything. On a live press conference at Saudi Arabia by WWE that was live streamed on their YouTube channel. So it was done in Saudi Arabian time, which means it's about 4 a.m. over in New York, which is the perfect time to hit all those morning talk shows where like movie trailers usually drop and stuff on American TV. So they're ahead of the news cycle. So expect Wednesday to be very dominated in the news and those little curiosity parts about WWE being at the forefront of change because they're making a women's match happen in Saudi Arabia. Of course, if you're unfamiliar, the reason that this is so sort of surprising or, you know, to steal a Michael Cole WWE word that will undoubtedly used, groundbreaking, the forefront of change, that sort of stuff, is because Saudi Arabian customs and laws don't allow for women to compete in sports, which is quite far behind Western society. It seems like Saudi Arabia is trying to soften stuff, but whether that's an actual commitment to change or just a surface level thing remains to be seen. The Saudi Arabian deal with WWE has been hugely controversial for a number of reasons. First, that the WWE, well, when it was first started, which was last, I want to say April, with the Greatest Royal Rumble after WrestleMania 34, and Crown Jewel that same year in October, November time, was that was really at the crux, the peak of all the Ronda Rousey stuff and how WWE were pushing the women's evolution and that whole PR narrative. And that ran very contradictory to their relationship with Saudi Arabia, where you couldn't have women perform. And no women were allowed on those shows. I think Renee Young appeared on one, but she had to be very covered up. Actually, at the Greatest Royal Rumble, the WWE had to apologize to Saudi Arabia because of indecent scenes that played on a video promo that had a picture, a clip of Carmella in the arena, where, you know, Carmella was dressed as she normally is, but in Saudi Arabia, that is seen as an indecent image because she's not wearing enough clothes. So it was, some people clapped and other people booed. Apparently the state TV cut off that part of the broadcast from the show. So that was one controversy, that WWE are pushing this women's evolution narrative, and, you know, they've got the whole Saudi Arabian controversy attached to them. Then later that year, just before Crown Jewel, the Saudi Arabian government murdered the Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi, which was a huge storm. It blew up everywhere. John Oliver addressed it in his HBO series. And a lot of major companies pulled out of doing shows, paid shows in Saudi Arabia because of that. So that was just another layer of just bad PR for the company. Again, they didn't get women on that show either. Sami Zayn is always notable by his absence as well. Reportedly, that's because he's of this Syrian descent, and Saudi Arabia doesn't like that, apparently. This year, in the Super Showdown pay-per-view in June, I believe it was, in Saudi Arabia, because there's 2 shows a year, is the deal. It's like a 10-year deal with Saudi Arabia that's worth just, I don't know if it's $1 billion, but it's an enormous amount of money. They're making more money from these shows than they are WrestleMania, for instance, WWE as a company. And it's for the, what was it, from this year in June? I've lost my train of thought. It was so they flew Alexa Bliss and Natalya over there for the Greatest Royal Rumble back in June, with the intention of putting that match on. And apparently, according to the Wrestling Observer at the time, it was on the match card backstage. They were just waiting on the green light. Give me the green light from Saudi Arabia's sports governing body. And they decided last minute, no, it's not going to happen. So Alexa Bliss and Natalya went around sort of hospitals and did WWE community appearances, but they never featured on the actual show. So what we've got now, after Natalya, Lacey Evans, and Lana, interestingly, they're all blonde. These are blonde people. It's totally in WWE's wheelhouse. They were pictured leaving with the WWE crew to Saudi Arabia this week following the Raw tapings. And yeah, that when that broke, we're all like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Maybe they're going to try it again. Maybe it will come down to the wire. But no, WWE have announced it themselves. They're going to have the first ever women's wrestling match in Saudi Arabia, which we cannot take away is a huge milestone. Whether it's done for cynical reasons is a factor in there. And oh my God, we are never going to hear the end of this from WWE. The next few months, nay, the next few years are going to be taken up with WWE pushing how they made this happen. It was the first thing that they're responsible for. Stephanie McMahon created women, and now she is gifting them to the Middle Eastern world. Enjoy, Middle Eastern world. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they wear, though, because the customs are that they really need to cover up their bodies. A similar incident happened in Abu Dhabi a few years ago, which WWE always like to push to and use as an example as one of their things of being at the forefront of change. Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss had a match at a WWE live event in Abu Dhabi, and they had to they had to cover up quite considerably, but their hair was out. They had their hair out. Abu Dhabi is much more westernized in general, though. That's probably why that happened a good few years before it's happening in Saudi Arabia. And that's the infamous clip, or the famous clip, it's not infamous, where a few people in the crowd started chanting, "This is hope." And WWE zeroed in on that chant. It was like the whole crowd were chanting, "This is hope." And you're like, more people chanted, "We want the smoke" on this week's episode of Raw for the Street Profits, in my opinion. So a lot of people are saying this is a step forward for the company and for the country, and that we should be pleased that WWE have had this happening. But that we can't discount all of the controversy and cynical reasons that this has been done for in the background. And it'll be interesting to see the reaction in the arena for tomorrow's Crown Jewel. We'll be live streaming the whole thing, so do tune in here on WrestleTalk to see our reactions and what's going on there. It's just as a personal thing for me, it's interesting that they didn't use Charlotte Flair here. Like, Charlotte Flair is the person that they're really hooking their entire women's division around from a front-facing perspective. She's obviously the company darling. The person WWE want to be the face of their women's division, even though we're all like, no, she's a much better heel. So it's interesting they didn't send Charlotte there. I don't know, maybe they're worried about a blowback, so that's why they put Natalya and Lacey and potentially Lana there. Why is Lana there? Maybe she'll feature in the Team Hogan, Team Flair match. And because, she's Bobby Lashley's on Team Flair and Rusev's on Team Hogan. Lana, they're feuding over Lana, so she could be at ringside and sort of flaring things up. Perhaps that's why the divorce court segment was the go home segment on the main event of Raw this week. It didn't look like it was selling anything for Crown Jewel, but actually maybe these plans have been afoot. Well, they definitely have been for quite a while, and that was why they made the divorce court segment the go home angle. But yes, if you've super chatted in, we'll be getting to those in our Crown Jewel predictions later on today. Make sure you tune into that. And yes, I'll wrap it up now. Please press the thumbs up button, give us a subscribe, share this video around as always. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was wrestling.